All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
We are a generous and welcoming people here in the United States, but those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law, and they are showing disregard for those who are following the law. We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this.
Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a 1 in the live chat, and then we can get today's show started. As I'm waiting for the ones to come in, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit that like button. That's the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does, that helps to make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get their notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you're one of those ghost watchers, you all know I see you. I catch you guys every time like Ghostbusters. I catch you all. If you're one of those ghost watchers who consistently watch my videos but refuse to subscribe, or if you're new, please do me a favor and yourself a favor. Hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms as well to help give this video a small boost in the YouTube algorithm as well. Yes, that does help me, but to also inform your family and friends on this news and information, okay? And with the introduction out of the way and with the ones coming into the live chat, let's get into today's show. And oh yeah, follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below, and it will be pinned in the comment section at the end of the stream also. Now we can get today's show started. Let's get it started. Let's get it going. The ones are coming in. I wanted to update you all on this concerning how the American citizen population feels about mass deportations. We've covered this once before. We know and understand that the majority of the American citizen population is in support of mass deportation. At the time when we talked about this in the past, right? And this wasn't too long ago. When we talked about this back in April, I believe it was. I'll pull this article up here first, but I'm not going to read through it as I would normally do. At the time, back in April, 51% of the American population was in support of Donald Trump's mass deportation efforts. 51% per the Axios poll that you see on your screen right now. Once again, that was back in April. But now, as we have moved forward a couple months in time to June, that number has now jumped up to 61%. It has jumped up to 61%. We're going to get into that right now. I want to read a few paragraphs from this article here. It won't take too long. And then after that, I want to jump into a CBS News clip from Face the Nation, in which a CBS News anchor on Face the Nation, I believe she's one of the moderators. If I remember her name correctly, her name is Margaret Brennan, if I remember correctly. I want to get into her reaction to this news that so many people in the American population, 61%, which is a lot, are in support of Donald Trump's mass deportation efforts. I want to get into her reaction because she was very bitter about it. She was very bitter in her response to seeing the number of people in the country that were in support of this, and that it's growing, right? But it makes sense that that is the case. It makes sense that that is the case, that it's growing, especially when you see what's happening in places like New York. And funny, you know, you all in the comment section are very clever. A lot of you are clever and funny and witty. Because as you all know, if you've been subscribed to this channel for any length of period of time, you know, for quite some time now, I've referred to Brandon Johnson as the Emperor of Chicago, right? The Emperor of Chicago. But it was so one of you all in the comment section, I don't remember your, you know, your YouTube handle name, but you remember, but you know who you are. I shouted you out once before. You were the one in the comment section that gave me the nickname of Chicago to becoming you gave me the nickname that you called Chicago, which I now refer to as the People's Republic of Chicago, right? And it flows so beautifully in connection with the nickname that I gave Brandon Johnson as the Emperor of Chicago. So now I always describe Chicago as the People's Republic of Chicago under the rule of Emperor Brandon Johnson. It's just so fitting. But recently, I want to say, I don't think it was this week. It might have been this week, but maybe sometime last week, late last week, one of you all in the comment section gave me a new nickname for New York City. And I fell out laughing when you said this in the comment section. Whoever you are, I hope you see this. I've been referring to New York City as Gotham City for quite some time now, but one of you all in the comment section referred to New York as New Venezuela. When you said New York is now New Venezuela, I fell out. And I think that that's what I'm going to start calling New York from now on. I'm going to start calling New York New Venezuela, because essentially that's what New York has turned into. It's turned into New Venezuela. So I don't know what's worse, referring to New York as Gotham City or referring to it as New Venezuela. I'll let you guys decide that and debate that in the comment section. But once again, when you look at what's happening in New York City, I believe over the course of the last 10 days, I've reported on Biden's migrants, right, firing shots at police officers, hitting 2 of them. They both survived, but firing shots at police officers, hitting 2 of them, and then fleeing. I also reported on illegal immigrant squatters in New York City, which got into it with legal residents of an apartment complex, to which a fight broke out and one of Biden's migrants unnecessarily unalived 2 of the legal residents of that apartment, as well as wounded another. And then there was the story that I did yesterday of 2 of Biden's migrants in New York City who mugged an Indian tourist in Times Square in the middle of the day. They beat him up pretty good and stole his belongings, right? And then they made a run for it as well. This is all within the course of 10 days, right? And there's so many more stories behind that. There's so many more stories other than that. I can go on and on and on. But once again, in the course of the last 10 days, this is what I've been reporting on. And with that being said, it makes sense that the sentiment of wanting and demanding mass deportation to come about, it just makes logical sense that that's the direction that people will start to move towards, and that they'll start being more in favor of that. And that's what we're seeing happen now. That's what we're seeing happen now and how things are playing out. Let me go through these quick 3 paragraphs here before we get into the video clip. It reads here, former President Trump has campaigned on the promise of expelling a large number of illegal immigrants from the country. At a Fox News town hall in January, he vowed to create the largest deportation effort in the history of the country if he is reelected in November, saying, "We have no choice." And I'm right there with him. At this point in time, I mean, we really have no choice. Trump has also insisted that he will finish the border wall, a project left over from his first term that Biden discontinued in May. Trump pledged to also immediately deport foreign students who participate in nano hat protests amid the chaotic campus demonstrations that had been disrupting academia. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I think some of you all know what I mean when I say nano hat protest. I got that from our man here, right? Friend of the channel, Blacklight Revelations 2, Rob, and personal conversation that me and him had where he referred to, you know, a certain group of people who you can't say their names really. He referred to them as the nano hats, you know, so we'll refer to them as the nano hats too, right? But you know, Trump said he's going to immediately deport any of them who are involved in those protests. But here's the meat and potatoes of what I really want to get into today, right? Concerning Margaret Brennan, who is a CBS News host, right? CBS News host Margaret Brennan appeared flabbergasted Sunday by the poll's results that there is widespread demand for deportations. Widespread demand, 61% to be exact. That is a huge jump to go from 51% in April to now 61% here in June. And I do believe by November, that number will be around 71%. I see it going up another 10 points. I see it going up another 10 points, close to almost 75% by November. After this summer, people are going to be fed up, particularly those in Democrat-ran states and cities. They are going to be fed up with the foolishness that's going to come about now that the weather is heating up. More buses are going to start coming back to these cities again. And those who came here to commit crime are going to do what they came here to do, to act up and participate in degenerate behavior now that they're in a country, and particularly in cities, sanctuary cities, where they know they have a green light to do whatever they want and they don't have to worry about deportation. Right. So now let's get into this clip here. And before I do that, there's 279 of you on the stream right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. That is extremely important to the growth of this channel. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Now let's get into this Face the Nation clip here from CBS.
The issues you
rewind it back just a little bit.
Anthony, let's talk about some of the issues you say are important to voters. The border's one of them. President Biden did issue an executive order this past week. It authorizes U.S. officials to deport large numbers of migrants without processing asylum claims until the border crossings number dips below 1,500. So it's essentially suspending some of the asylum processing. Trump's been perceived as stronger on the border. Does this change anything?
No, Trump still is. More people think that Donald Trump's policies would stop or slow border crossings more than Biden's. Having said that, there is widespread support when we test in general terms for what President Biden just did.
I want to stop right there. Let me back it up just a little bit and let's go back to this portion of the poll here, because I don't want to just move along past this stuff, right? So it states here, migrants at border, their policies would, right? Their policies would, meaning what Trump's policies would do, what Biden's policies would do, and what it wouldn't do, right? So 49% of the American population believes that Biden's policies would increase crossings to Trump's 5%. How that number isn't zero is besides me concerning by Trump, but you know, go figure. And then as it pertains to what each individual's policies would do in regards to decreasing crossings, 20% of Americans believe that Biden's policies would result in decreasing crossings. That really should be zero, honestly. And 70% believe Trump's policies would result in decreasing crossings, right? So clearly the people are on the side of Donald Trump as it pertains to getting a handle of the border. But then as it pertains to this portion here, right? where they kind of try to make Biden look a little good, where they're saying, Biden's executive order on Biden's executive order on migrants crossing the border. He has a 70% approval rating on that executive order. I don't really give him much credit for that. Him having a 70% approval rating concerning him doing that's the equivalent of people just being happy that he did something, right? Which is too little, too late. He did something too little too late, but the people, I guess, are apparently happy, those that were polled, that he at least did a little bit of something, which really isn't equating to much at all. But since he did a little bit of something, yeah, we'll give him a little bit of credit. And he got a 70% approval rating for that. I don't give him credit for that at all whatsoever, because once again, it's too little too late for a liar like Biden, who said he couldn't do anything as it pertains to executive orders, and that he exhausted all means, but was clearly lying about that.
Support, when we test in general terms, for what President Biden just did. He gets 7 in 10 support on that. It's overwhelming among Republicans. It's also strong among Democrats. Look, context there. People have said they think that the border is in crisis for a long time. Having said that, we have a lot of the campaign rhetoric speaking of what people say they would do. You've seen the Trump campaign talking about mass deportations. We tested that in a general way in principle. Would you support a new government program that would deport all people living in the U.S. illegally? And that finds majority favor.
Now, I got the number wrong. It went from 51%. It went up from 51% from the Axios polling to 62%. So that's just 1 percentage point higher than what I stated. I said 61%. It's actually gone up to 62%. So I'm going to adjust my prediction then and say that come November, by the time the election gets here, that number is going to jump up to about 72%. Close to 75% of the American population are going to be in favor of mass deportation of all illegal immigrants. Once again, especially after this summer, because it's definitely going to be a long, hot summer concerning illegal immigrant induced crime, we'll say, right?
6 and 10. It's strongest among folks who are MAGA. It's strongest among Trump.
Let me rewind this back just a little bit. I want to touch on something here.
Would deport all people living in the U.S. illegally. And that finds majority favor. That finds 6 and 10. It's strongest among folks who are MAGA. It's strongest among Trump supporters, but also from some Democrats as well. And
I like how he attempted to belittle the polling by saying it's strongest amongst MAGA, it's strongest amongst Republicans and conservatives, and then, there's some Democrats as well. No, there are actually quite a few Democrats in these cities that are very much in favor. And if you disaggregate the data, that's the term that I'm looking for, you'll find that, especially in places like Chicago, because the polling has been done there already, we've talked about it before, you'll find that the majority of Black Americans, particularly in a city like Chicago, are in favor of not just mass deportations, but stripping their city and all other cities of their sanctuary city status to get them up out of here. But they're not going to say all that. They're not going to get into that type of detail. CBS is a DNC network, so they're not going to break it down like that. They're going to play it off as if it's just MAGA, MAGA and Republicans / conservatives that are in favor of this.
And I think that speaks to the general idea, not just that people see the border as a crisis, but also where we are in the campaign, where a lot of very dramatic or new proposals out there are finding favor here.
So unpack that a bit, because this 62% of Americans favor deporting all undocumented immigrants. So Homeland Security says that President Biden has already deported or repatriated more people in the past year than any year since 2010.
That is such bull crap. Listen, he said DHS has reported, Department of Homeland Security has reported that Biden this year has deported more illegal immigrants than anyone has since 2010. I don't want to doubt DHS because I cite them often. I cite the Department of Homeland Security often. All right. So I'm not going to say DHS is lying. I don't want to say that because I use them all the time. But to the degree that that's true, which I just don't believe, coming from a president in Biden who, I don't have the stats in front of me right now for you all to see, but I've gone through this so many times and I've showed this to you all so many times where you've seen the numbers for yourself. Ask anybody in the comment section, they'll let you know. The last 4 years of Obama administration, he was averaging roughly around 400,000 deportations a year. His last 4 years. In the 4 years of Trump that we had, he was averaging somewhere around 250K deportations a year. We're going from averaging around 400 during the Obama years to averaging about 250K deportations, in the Trump years. Immediately when Biden takes office in 2021, he only deports 59,000 illegal immigrants. And that was the lowest deportation number as it pertains to being under the 100,000 mark. We hadn't seen a number that low. I remember I had the data up before. We haven't seen a number that low in roughly around 20 some odd years. It's been 20 some odd years since we've seen a number that low, under 100,000, right? But somehow Biden managed to only deport 59,000 in 2021. In 2022, he only deported roughly around 72,000. It wasn't until 2023 when that number skyrocketed up to 143,000. That makes sense now because he has crossed over the halfway mark concerning his presidency. Now he has to consider re-election, right? So with that, now you're seeing deportations go up to 143,000 in 2023. With that being said, I once again, I don't want to call DHS liars, Department of Homeland Security liars, because I use them all the time. I cite them all the time. So to the degree that that number is true, what she's saying, that all of a sudden he's deported the most illegal immigrants since anybody in 2010, that's clearly because he's running for re-election, and he has to be able to say something when he debates Donald Trump in June 27th. He has to be able to defend himself on the open borders section or portion of the debate. So that's why those numbers are seemingly as inflated as they are now. But I'm going to be honest with you. Like I said, and I keep reiterating this point. I don't want to belabor it too much. I don't want to say DHS is lying, but because I use them all the time. But you guys are lying. I don't want to say you're lying, but y'all are lying, man. You're lying, man. Biden didn't all of a sudden, eclipse Barack Obama's deportation rate in 1 year. After starting out his presidency only deporting 59,000. That's cap. That's cap.
And then, depending on the details of what's talked about on the campaign trail, some of what Mr. Trump talks about could be illegal. It doesn't seem practical in some sense to round up children. And then we know.
See, Donald Trump never said that. You see how these folks, the people who cry about disinformation, misinformation, malinformation, dangerous rhetoric, the people who cry about it the most violate that the most. You've never heard Donald Trump ever in life say that he wanted to round up children. You've never heard that man say that. He's literally never said, with the Trump hands, I want to round up, I want to round up children. I'm going to round up all the illegal immigrant children. He literally has never said that. That's crazy. That's crazy that she would even say that. But, once again, the folks that cry and complain about that the most, they actually violate that the most as it pertains to fake news, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and dangerous rhetoric. They violate that the most.
Some of what Mr. Trump talks about could be illegal. It doesn't seem practical in some sense to round up children. And then we know that the courts have questioned whether local authorities would have the ability to do it, and federal authorities don't have the resources. So what exactly do people think they're supporting?
Well, look at how insulting she is. So what exactly do people think they're supporting? Because they're also because you're also unintelligent, right? Let's zoom in on her a little bit. I know my logo is blocking you, but it is what it is. I gotta protect myself. YouTube stuff, right? But she's so insulting. What exactly do 62% of the population? You're also dumb. What exactly do you think you're supporting? Wow, you guys are idiots.
Don't have the resources. So what exactly do people think they're supporting?
Well, when you measure public.
Now, let's really pay attention to what he's saying, because he's going to explain exactly what the people think they're supporting right now. And he gave a really, really good answer. And shout out to College of Natural Health Science, BDA, for coming through once again. Said, me, all my family, black farm animals are gearing up for them chains. Geared up for them chains. I think we're all gearing up for them chains, because we all know what's going to happen. You know, Donald Trump gets back in office and you're black, right?
They're going to put you all back in chains. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Gonna put us back in chains, man. We got to get ready for those chains, man. That mass deportation is coming, and black folks gonna get put back in chains.
They're gonna put you all back in chains.
Oh man. Any and everything black is going back in chains if Trump gets in office, or at least if you let them tell it.
Resources. So what exactly do people think they're supporting?
Well, when you measure public sentiment on this, or really just about any policy, you're getting a sense of direction, you're getting broad brushstrokes, but those kinds of details, well, that's often up to the legislatures and the courts later on. We tested even the idea of, should local law enforcement be involved in this? And a lot of folks do say yes. Again,
local law enforcement should be involved in this. They should be able to round up folks.
The details of that, the specifics, you're not going to pick that up in an aggregate public opinion.
They weren't tracking this.
Really think about this. You know, I haven't discussed this much. I've been telling myself to do a today's news video on this. But as we speak right now in the People's Republic of Chicago, under the rule of Emperor Brandon Johnson, as of right now, they are actively, Chicago PD is actively training on essentially how to quell, we'll say, the potential upcoming protest of American citizens that will be showing up to protest the DNC convention in Chicago. They have all type of new tactics that they're working on. They're practicing day and night, you know, on how to round folks up, you know, how to quell the protests, you know, how to tame it down, you know, how to engage in mass arrest if they need to. Chicago PD is doing more to suppress the voices of its citizens and to engage in the mass arrest and detaining of its citizens more so than they are of illegal immigrants that are actually committing or are actually committing crimes in the city and causing a ruckus in the city. The citizen population is in more of a threat, right, of being silenced, rounded up, arrested, and thrown in jail, right? More so than the illegal immigrant population in the city. They're preparing right now to snatch you guys up if you have the audacity to come to the DNC convention and protest and get a little bit too rowdy. But you've seen the videos that I played of you of the migrant shelter in downtown Chicago, where it looked like hundreds of Biden's migrants were in the street, and they actually backed up Chicago PD. They made Chicago PD flee. They made Chicago PD flee. How many of you all remember that news clip that I put up, or my news clip, right, where I reported on that, and the video that I showed? I got a lot of views. That's one of my videos that got a lot of views on it, you know, a couple, tens of thousands. Illegal immigrants all in the street, hundreds of them in the street, downtown Chicago, causing a ruckus. Chicago PD was all around them, and they backed Chicago PD up. Chicago PD had to flee. But now on the flip side, as it pertains to the DNC convention that's getting ready to happen in Chicago, they're preparing to round you citizens up. Let that sit on your mind. Let that sit on your mind and marinate for a moment. But let's get back into, you know, what he was saying. And I'm not going to interrupt from this point moving forward. I'm going to let him finish his statement.
And the courts later on, we tested.
Rewind that back just a little bit more. Let's start from the beginning with him, because we're about to round this out.
Policy. You're getting a sense of direction. You're getting broad brushstrokes. But those kinds of details, well, that's often up to the legislatures and the courts later on. We tested even the idea of, should local law enforcement be involved in this? And a lot of folks do say yes. Again, The details of that, the specifics, you're not going to pick that up in an aggregate public opinion.
They weren't tracking the Supreme Court decisions.
Undoubtedly not. But look, it does tell you, though, for the viewer watching this campaign, that what we're seeing here connects to whether it's the courts, what some people say is the politicization of the courts, these ideas of mass deportations, et cetera. We are in a different era in which a lot of folks say the system as a whole is not working. And all of these, if you connect the dots through them, are part of that reaction against it, which explains some of that general sentiment for some of these policies.
It's really just kind of a do something.
Do something.
And he explained that perfectly. And yes, the name's a little bit small, and you guys know I'm bad at reading names. Well, yes, you, who I have comment pinned on the screen right now, I did discuss how J.B. Pritzker signed into law that Chicago PD can now hire non-citizens, right? Can now hire non-citizens. I did a report on that a few months back. But he explained that perfectly when she insulted you all who are in support of mass deportations. That she said, well, what do they think they're actually like supporting when they vote for this on the polls? You guys are so stupid. What do you think you're supporting? He explained it perfectly. The details and the legality of how that would happen is irrelevant at the time of the polling. The only thing that's needed is for those who are in office to understand what the sentiment is of the American citizen population. And if the sentiments reflects in the polling that the overwhelming majority of Americans, 62%, are in support of mass deportation, this then gives them the green light to follow through with writing legislation to put that into law and to make it happen. And the legality of it all, how it all works, whether or not we have the manpower, yada, 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 that'll all come into play later, and we'll figure it out later. But do we have the people's support? Now, mind you, as it pertains to passing law, politicians really don't care about what the people think and how they feel. But if they can get a majority decision from the general population as it pertains to polls in support of whatever it is they want to do, if the polls reflect as they do now, 62% of the American population are in support of mass deportations, well, then that makes the job of said politician, obviously Trump at this point, it makes his job that much easier to push forward with that type of legislation, because you can always look back on the polling and say, this is what the American population want. So cry me a river if you're against it. The people said they want this, so that's what I'm going to do. Now, whether or not all of this will happen, I don't know. We'll see, because we still don't know yet if Trump's even going to win the election. All polls and everything considered, it seems pretty obvious that he's going to win. Seems very obvious that he's going to win. But once again, we got to look out for, Joe Biden's 2020 magic. That's why I tell you guys, I'm not going to sleep this election. Last election, I went to sleep. Biden was down bad. And I woke up in the morning, surprise, ta-da, hocus pocus, shazam. Guess who won the election? So this election, I'm not going to bed. I'm going to sit up all night like this, watching the TV, so they won't be able to get me again. You're not going to get me with that Biden 2020 magic this time, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Nothing is guaranteed, but we will see what happens. With all that being said, that does it for today's show. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Please hit the like button if you haven't on your way out. There are 503 of you in the stream right now. Please hit that like button on your way out if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video out on your social media platforms. And also, please don't forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below and will be pinned in the comment section once the stream ends. Shout out to Chris. Shout out to Chris. Many will self-deport if they go hard on deporting. Yeah, there probably will be many that self-deport. There might be some that self-deport. And I appreciate your support, Chris. And you all know I'm horrible with reading people's names. You know, it's pathetic, but it is what it is. Shout out to you, Chris. I appreciate you supporting today's show. And shout out to College of Natural Health and Science BDA once again for coming through, spinning the block and coming back around. Said my black cat escaped. What? My black cat escaped meowing. No chains for me. Your black cat got out of here. Your black cat said, no chains for me. Trump can get back in office if he wants to, but they're not gonna put me back in chains.
They're gonna put you all back in chains.
Your black cat said, I'm about to get out of here. Oh man, you gotta love that DNC fear mongering. You gotta love that DNC fear mongering. If Trump gets into office, he's gonna put all black folks back in chains, and there's gonna be mass deportations. Man, mass deportation is definitely on the way. Black folks getting put back in chains, not so much. But anyways, thank you all for joining me today or tonight. Have a great evening and a safe one. I'll catch you guys hopefully tomorrow morning. Peace and have a good one.